Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a quick tip for you, and that is you always want to make sure to vet whoever is doing any kind of modifications to your knives or your gear. As an example here, my buddy Nico needed to find somebody who would do some acid washing work and some sharpening, and he sent this guy along to a relatively new to him sort of sharpener and acid washer. The anodization was done very differently by a different person and was very nicely done, but unfortunately the acid wash and sharpen didn't go so well. If you watch the disassembly video, you'll see that the guy didn't quite properly mask off the detent ball path. And so the detent ball is grinding kind of through some really unpleasant and uneven areas where the etching happened. And so as a result, the action goes from smooth to... and that's well oiled. That's really ugly. And unfortunately, that really does hurt the action on this knife. Also, the sharpening kind of got away from this person. You can see here that, maybe you can see here, but there's not the same amount of curvature in the recurve. It's actually become sort of there's a flat portion in the recurve right here. What I suspect happened is that the guy was using some sort of a guided system, like a Wicked Edge or a KME, and just spent too long on that one little portion of the blade, and ended up flattening off a portion of the recurve. And that's unfortunate. It's a common beginner's mistake with these guided systems and recurves. But it is really unpleasant. And so, my buddy Nico figured out what he needed to. He sent this knife along because he doesn't care that much. But, he found out that this person wasn't particularly good at the sharpening sort of thing. So that's kind of an important reminder. Anytime you're looking to do any kind of work on your knife, check the person out, vet them, and there are a couple of things you can do. You can ask for a photo gallery of their past work, particularly with an acid washer or a sharpener. That can be very helpful. You'll see whether the bevels are even, things like that. You can, and also make sure that you ask for knives that are similar to yours. So this guy's got a recurve. This guy does not. This was done by the same sharpener and is actually very, very nicely done. I have no complaints whatsoever about this edge. But this one, it's very clear that he struggled on the recurve front. Maybe he didn't know what he was getting into, or maybe he just had a bad day. But whatever it is, it's a little unpleasant. So make sure that you're asking, if you've got a CKF muscle, ask, hey, have you done a CKF muscle before? Or, hey, have you ever done a recurve blade? And get pictures that way. It's also a good idea to ask them to put you in touch with a prior customer. Just like, hey, do you have anybody I can, talk to? That way you'll learn things like, oh, yeah, the service was great, but the guy took 6 months to get my knife done. That's something you might not hear from the person himself. And so that's another important thing. You can also ask for very detailed pictures. Just say, hey, next time you're doing a job, could you take a picture of the detent track after the acid wash? And that'll give you a sense of whether the guy is actually masking off the detent track in the way that they should, or whether it's like this, where they've got the canyony, cratery nastiness. And then finally, it's always a good idea to ask, so I hope that this is going to go great, and I think you do good work, but what happens if I'm not satisfied with this? What happens if there's a problem? If the person gives you a response that's full of bluster, like, oh, that'll never be the case with me, I'm God's gift to anodization and acid wash and sharpening, they're probably full of crap. Or at the very least, they're full of themselves, but either way, it's a bit of a warning sign. But if they give you something more like, well, it'll really depend on what the issue is, but if I make a mistake and I agree with that, we'll talk about refunding you for your service and helping you out of the knife or something along those lines. They might give a very good answer, they might give a very bad answer, but either way, it's information. So that's just the quick tip. It's obvious to a lot of people, but always make sure that you check somebody out, whether by sending something you don't care about as much, or just by doing a bunch of research ahead of time, asking a bunch of questions. And if you see anything that looks like a red flag, remember, there are many, many fish in the sea. There are lots of great sharpeners, there are a lot of great anodizers, lots of great acid washers out there. And so if you've got somebody who's giving you results, even if they're offering you a great deal, it may not be worth it if you end up hurting your knife in a pretty serious way. So, hope this was interesting, helpful, wasn't too obvious, and mostly I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the day and that your anodizations, sharpenings, and acid washes all just go beautifully. Have a good one. Bye now.